emotionless, disconnected from people, from feeling, from yourself, an inability to connect with others, lost, not present. These are all signs of being dissociated. Now, as a victim of any trauma, it is a safety mechanism that the brain and the body will put you through so you can live on and survive through it. The idea behind this is that you have an ability to shut off your brain from connecting to anything so that you can survive. So in terms of child sexual abuse, let's put it this way. When I was going through any of the accounts of abuse, in the moment, I don't remember a feeling. I remember every aspect around me. I could see the colors of the room, what was on TV, the color of the buttons on my pajamas, but I was unable to connect a feeling. Now, this was something that became a pattern over years. And the more and more it happened, the better I got at this. The idea behind this was so that I could forget what was happening and I could protect myself. I could survive it. So you shut off. It's like a blank wall. Then trying to reconnect that later on in life can actually be a struggle because you find yourself doing the same habit unintentionally. Now, if you find yourself being someone that's unable to connect and reconnect with yourself, your own being, this could be because of a trauma. Now, with childhood sexual traumas, we find the biggest things that are disconnected are a sense of self, an identity, and even a sense of feeling, as simple as being able to connect to the feeling and the sensations of your own skin, your own breath, your own heartbeat. These are quite hard to do. Now again, it had its function. Its function was to save me, protect me in a time where my body was being taken control over by someone else. Now, as time has progressed, I needed to rid myself of this behavior. But unfortunately, because it was such a pattern, my brain said, well, this is how we survived once. This is how we will survive again, even if it was no longer necessary. So this can become quite dysfunctional. Remember, the brain and the body don't do anything against us. Everything it does has a call to action. And the reason why it's there is so we can do something about it. But also understand that the brain likes to pick up patterns because it likes to save us from surprise. Surprise can cause death. So even the smallest surprise can be something of shock to the human system. So the brain will predict what is coming. It will say, okay, this is what's going to happen, so this is how I'll react. So if I had a pattern set up from childhood, that pattern has progressed and only progressed further as I got older. Now, if you catch yourself out doing this, a very, very simple way to learn to reconnect, and it's one thing I teach to all of my clients, is breathing. Learning to breathe is one of the first steps in reconnecting with your body. One of the first things we do when we panic is hyperventilate. Okay, so if you've had a panic attack, an anxiety attack, it's generally sucking in air and you'll realize you have no ability to exhale. So one of the first steps for reconnecting with my body was just learning to breathe again. Now, if you learn to breathe, you're like, okay, cool. How does that have anything to do with helping my mental health and me reconnecting with my mind and my memories and my thoughts? Learning to breathe is the first step because breath is life. Without breath, we don't live. So if we can learn through movement, if we can learn through breathing, we actually have an ability to create awareness and presence back within our body. Then we can move it further into movement, into muscles, into feeling your heartbeat, listening out for your heartbeat. But as simple as learning to reconnect with your breath will create a connection back to your being. Now, dissociation, again, has a function. It is to shut you off, to switch you off, to take you out of the physical sense of the world that you were in that is quite dangerous, that could be of risk to you. Allow you to just be pretty much an empty shell, what I felt like was a robot, and live through that moment. And then all of a sudden, once the trauma is over, you're back to being somewhat yourself. Remember, the more and more you get good at the pattern of disconnecting, the harder it is to change. So the longer and longer you've spent your life in that same pattern where you feel like you're no longer present, You no longer have an ability to connect with your body, with your mind. Memories are quite faint. It's hard to feel and detail certain elements of your life. The more and the longer you've done that, the harder it is to bring yourself back. My biggest word of advice is please connect back to yourself. Learn to reconnect, learn to breathe. And if you need help, ask for it. Because as a victim of any trauma, we need to be our best self to move forward and live a full and healthy life. And in particular with childhood sexual abuse, when someone has taken complete ownership of your body, your being, you need to learn to take that back, because that can lead to some deeper and more darker, serious illnesses or conditions as you go on. Things to do with your own sexuality, your own identity, your own mental health. So one of the biggest things I suggest is reconnecting back to yourself, because dissociation is a massive aftermath of trauma, but it's also an element that actually survives within the trauma while it's happening. So it becomes that pattern that we live on to reuse to protect ourselves for anything that we believe might give us a similar outcome. So the more you connect back to yourself, the better chance you have of healing and not only surviving, but truly living.